Hi, I'm Erica, a mom, wife, and caregiver. I have been through the highs and lows of having a child with a medically complex background and special needs, all caused by epilepsy. I'm here to let you know you're not alone. There are so many resources out there, and that you too can and will come out on the other side stronger and more resilient than you ever imagined. It's not always easy, but I'm here for you. Welcome to the Parenting Epilepsy and Special Needs podcast. As I mentioned last week, summer is just around the corner, and I know as a mom how important it is to keep our children busy and moving and mobile over the summer. For me, my daughter is almost 13 and is showing signs of appreciating her sleep. So, while I am willing to let her sleep in a little, I also know that a routine in keeping her active will also serve her very well. It can be stressful to think about how to keep your child with epilepsy and special needs busy over the summer. Do you enroll them in a camp? Do you hire someone to keep them busy and care for them? If you work, do you cut back on hours, or how do you make all of this function for these next few months? There is a lot more thought and prep that goes into making a summer plan for your child with special needs than is required for a neurotypical child. I know because I've had to do both. So today I wanted to discuss what has worked for us in our family and how I have found people or camps, as well as some fun things to do with your child and family to keep everyone entertained throughout the summer. So let's start by talking about a simple option that is offered to children with an IEP or individual education plan, and that's extended school year, also known as ESY. ESY is a great way for children to continue to work on their academic and therapeutic goals and skills that they are currently working on in school and working on those for a few weeks across the summer. Children with complex medical backgrounds often require constant repetition of skills and frequent work on a variety of areas in order to make progress and master that skill or goal. In our area, ESY runs only for just a few weeks in June, and usually it wraps up just before after the 4th of July. And as I mentioned, it's a great way to keep up with the routine while building upon and maintaining those skills that your child worked on and learned throughout the past school year. In a lot of areas as well, again, I'm just speaking for what I know for our area, transportation is available as well to school, to and from school. So the next option is to find a special recreation camp or day camp. You can find this by doing some research or a quick Google search or making some phone calls. There are tons of camps, at least in our area, and also in surrounding towns and counties. But please be aware, not all camps are created equal. And just because they say that they're a camp for children with special needs, you may want to continue to do some digging and really find out if the specific camp will work for your child. You know your child and you know what your child's needs are on a daily basis to stay safe and cared for. So, let me explain a little bit about what I mean and some of the research that I did a couple of summers ago. So, I contacted a special needs camp nearby. I asked questions related to what their protocol was to respond to a child with a history of epilepsy and seizures. And are they required to call 911? Can they assist my child with using the bathroom? What training or background does the staff have in working with kids with special needs and epilepsy? Do the children go swimming? And if so, how will they assist my child with getting it in and out of the water? What does this all look like? These are just a few of the questions I asked to start. I quickly realized that despite this camp having the intent and label to serve children with special needs, it just wasn't going to be a fit for our daughter, which bummed me out. But I, being the persistent, determined person that I am, I was like, okay, move on. We'll find the next one. But the reason why is that they needed to call 911 for any and all seizures that she had. And at that time, again, this was a few years ago, she she didn't require her rescue medication. We didn't need to call 911 for her seizure. She came out of them. So all I could picture was her being traumatized by coming out of a seizure and seeing paramedics and just a lot of people around her. So I knew it was not going to be a fit for her. They also could not assist her in the bathroom, which was a red flag for us. Um, and then they also mentioned a few other things that just unfortunately were not going to work along with her and her disability. So I began researching online and looking for other possible camp options nearby. The next county over had an amazing award winning camp program that looked like it would be a fit for our daughter. So I reached out to the camp program coordinator and asked a few questions, received answers that were helpful, and they sent me a link to complete initial forms and questions about my daughter. Now, I could tell by how in depth the forms were that this was going to be a wonderful option for her and a perfect fit. They asked questions similar to what I would complete in order for her to go to start school or anytime we've had transitions between, say, like preschool and elementary school or elementary school and middle school, that level of in depth, which was very helpful. However, though, since we do not live in this county where the state camp is located, I could complete all of the information and then our daughter was added to a lottery list. And in the past, my daughter was chosen to join this camp. Unfortunately, this year she was not. So we're exploring other options to keep her busy. But it was a great experience. She had a one-to-one aide that assisted her with eating if necessary, toileting, swimming, and activities during the camp. Her specific aide was a special education teacher in a nearby school district and was familiar with and had worked with children who had similar needs to our daughter. It was a really good experience, and our daughter loved it. There were also options for half day camps, and then they offered extended or full day camps once ESY or extended school year was over. So, to kind of touch on that, if for example, say that we lived in that county and our daughter attended ESY, they had it set up to where a bus would take her, again, this is only if we lived in that county. It would take her from ESY directly to day camp if we wanted that option. So it was pretty nice, and they were very organized and had a really good program. The next option is hiring someone to care for your child throughout the summer. If you don't have someone in mind to ask, then you can start by creating a list of what the care would include so that you can target your request to the best qualified person or people. I did this a few years ago. I mentioned my daughter's age, that she had epilepsy and is in a wheelchair or is paralyzed on her left side, and included the number of hours per week or per day that I was looking for. And that I included also the expectations of what this person would be doing with her as they cared for her. This person had to be comfortable with her potentially having a seizure, assisting her with going to the bathroom and getting around a few rooms in our home just on the first floor. Because all of her, most things that she needs and plays with are on the first floor. She really only sleeps on our second level. So, next, once I had outlined what the caregiving job included, I next determined how I would share or post this information to get it out and hopefully find the most qualified candidates. There are, I should say, a few ways that you can approach this. You can post on your personal social media. You can post it as if it's a job um, in your neighborhood or town community social media pages. I know some areas have like special needs parent groups. You can post across those to see if other people have someone that they know of, maybe who's moved to a different area or is looking for work. Um, you can also share this info on with your child's therapist, both at school or private therapy, as they may actually be interested or know of resources or qualified applicants. I will say, I know in some areas that if your child is currently seeing that therapist, it may be um, I can't think of the exact phrase right now, but like they basically can't do it. But in some situations, if the therapist was their therapist in the past, or if they're taking a break from therapy, then there may be an opportunity, basically, it won't be a conflict of interest. Um, so just keep that in mind. You can also try posting on sites such as care.com. For me, I ended up finding qualified candidates to interview just by posting on our neighborhood Facebook page. I ended up interviewing a handful of college age students who were majoring in either nursing, physical therapy, or special education. I interviewed I interviewed them over the phone and then invited them over to meet our daughter in person. I thought it would be really important to see how well they interacted with her and connected with her, as well as just having my own opportunity to talk with them one on one. These candidates were all great, and it was actually really difficult to choose the one who would spend their summer with her. But I ultimately made a decision and selected a sitter/caregiver for the summer for our daughter. It turned out to be an amazing fit. She Our daughter was sad when it was time for the sitter to leave. They connected really well and they had fun together. The only downside in our specific situation, with selecting college students, which, as I mentioned, all of these girls were, and they were all female, um, is that they aren't necessarily a long-term fit, since obviously in college, you can decide to stay at school during the summer or take on jobs that are required for them to graduate or related to their major. So this is where finding someone who has experience with special needs children or your child's diagnosis is really important. And potentially there's people out there in these different fields who might be looking for summer work. This could be like a grad student or a special ed teacher or just a gen ed teacher, or a part time nurse or therapist, or even a retired para that might be a good fit. So if you personally have found a nanny, or a caregiver that was great with your child and you found them in a unique way, share your story. Send me a DM on Instagram. I am always looking for new avenues to share and promote through the podcast with other families. Finally, I want to cover a few fun things that you and your child and or their caregiver can do over the summer to stay busy and have fun. So, we talked about camps, but what other options are out there if you're looking for things to do that are inclusive and accessible? Many zoos, aquariums, museums, movie theaters, and even local park district aquatic parks or water parks will have designated dates for children with special needs to visit. These are sometimes called sensory friendly dates. So, if your child would benefit from a sensory friendly date, I would highly recommend Googling, or just doing a quick Google search for sensory friendly events for kids with special needs near me. This does not mean, I do want to say, that you can only attend these places on those dates. It's just an opportunity to attend when it might be a little bit more calm. The atmosphere itself might be more calm and enjoyable for your child. That's it. But I'm sure you can attend any day if that would work for you and your family and your child, of course. Another idea is to invite friends over to play or hang out with your child. So, while our daughter is verbal and she does have a speech delay, but she may not actively or proactively might be the better way to say it, ask me to have a friend over. However, I do know that she enjoys spending time with other children, both with special needs, some similar to hers, some completely different. And then also, she enjoys spending time with typical peers or typical kids. So, before the school year ends, one thing that you can do is talk to your child's teacher or paras and ask who your child connects well with. And you can even ask for permission to get the phone numbers of their parents. Our daughter is currently in a special education classroom and she's in middle school. But in elementary school, she was still in a special education classroom and program, but she was pushed into a general education classroom with her peers that were the same age. There were different opportunities for this throughout her week, from morning meetings to science and social studies lessons, as well as PE or gym class, and then other social work opportunities. So there were always a few kids when this would happen who love and are curious about your child and enjoy spending time with them. Our daughter has one friend in particular. She is just an amazing kid. They go to a club together at school. We have her over at our home and they play together, and we have bowling dates. That's our one of our daughters and her friend's favorite things to do. And then her friend also attends her Special Olympics competitions. Sometimes like their entire family comes. It's really cool. And I know as a mom how important and precious these relationships are. And I know also that it's up to me to coordinate this with the other mom to make this happen. I know how busy we are and how hard that can be. And believe me, the first to forget, but I try to make it so that I set reminders for myself. And thankfully, this girl's mom has been awesome with proactively reaching out to me, which I am just so grateful for. But it's so important that our children, whether verbal or nonverbal, have those relationships, and sometimes it's up to us as the moms or parents to make them happen. So, my advice is don't be shy. Reach out to the teachers, ask them for the parents' phone numbers if there's any children who connect well with your child. I promise it will be worth it. And it's really cool to see the friendships that form and take place. So, another idea is to check out your local special recreation park district classes or events. There are also local special needs baseball leagues. Our daughter, she joined, it's called the local Power League, and that's POWER. I personally don't know if that's just like local to us, but or if that's a national league. But I'll mention another league that I've heard of as well in a few minutes. She was able to join this league, I think when she was 5 or 6, maybe even a little older, but she absolutely loves it. It's a local organization that opens registration to kids of all different abilities and needs. There are numerous volunteers and parents who participate and assist the children if they need it. We, as a family, look forward to our daughter's Power League games each week throughout the summer. It brings a ton of smiles, laughs, and it's just an all around happy atmosphere as we get to watch some pretty inspiring and amazing kids play baseball. There, there's other organizations, as I mentioned. So, for example, I remember seeing one that was called the Miracle League. And if you search local special needs kids baseball leagues, you can find what's available in your area. If you and your child enjoy spending time at the pool, we have found a few options that work for us, but typically require at least myself and one of my other children or husband to join and assist me in getting our daughter in and out of the water. So, our daughter loves the pool and water in general. And now that she is almost 13, about just under 5 feet tall and slightly over 100 pounds, I cannot myself just easily pick her up and get her in and out of the pool. And as I've mentioned before, she's not able to walk independently. And then, especially when we're going swimming, she's not wearing her AFOs. And so she can't walk, without those on. So, how do we do this? Some park district pools and water parks have either a zero depth section of the pool where you can push your child in with their wheelchair or adaptive stroller, then transfer them to a raft or flotation device. Other pools have special needs pool lift chairs that actually can take a disabled person from the pool deck into the pool. We've also found, or we purchased, well, we didn't purchase, it was actually gifted to my child, a flotation device that it's like a raft for kids with special needs, but I can't even call it a raft. I'll put the link to, we'll just call it the flotation device in the show notes. But as I mentioned, it was gifted to her and purchased from a special needs device website. If I remember correctly, this specific device, flotation device, was more for children with CP. And our daughter specifically there's some overlap or characteristics with CP. So that's why it was a good fit for her, but she does not technically have CP. Um, the the flotation device helps keep her above water and safely floating with us nearby. Of course, we do not leave her unattended while in this device. And again, as I mentioned, I'll include a link in the show notes. Last, but certainly not least, we had an absolute blast with our daughter in a standard, well, I guess there's all different kinds nowadays, but in a blow up pool that we had in our backyard during COVID. She was lighter, so it was easier to get her in and out, but she loved playing with the water toys and spending hours upon hours in the pool. The hardest part, as I mentioned, was getting her out of the pool, and not because she was too heavy, but because she was having so much fun and didn't wanna leave, and, draining the water along with not destroying the grass in our backyard. But it was well worth it, and it was perfect for that specific unique summer during COVID. If you have other ideas that have been a success at keeping your child entertained over the summer, please share them. I would be so happy to hear what has worked for you and would love to share that with other parents. So, in closing, thank you for being here and for listening. I am so proud of you. I am here for you, and I know that you are doing the best with everything on your plate. Until next time, stay strong and believe in yourself. You're an amazing mama, and your child is lucky to have you. Please share this with someone who could benefit from hearing today's episode. Don't forget to write a review or rate this episode. It really means a lot to me and helps get this specific show out to others who need this information. You can also follow me on Instagram at parenting epilepsy _ special needs. We'll see you on the next episode.